Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Cardos, the newly elected Vice President of the Cedar Amateur Astronomers for the year of 2024. And it's my privilege to introduce tonight's speaker, Mr. Mark Brown. Mark and I have not met in person, but I became acquainted with him a few years ago when he gave a very interesting and informative Zoom presentation on astrophotography that had been arranged through the Hiawatha Public Library. At the time, Mark was living in Marion, Iowa, and was a NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory Solar System Ambassador, and he continues in that role today. When I volunteered to help find a speaker for one of our CAA 2024 public meetings, I immediately thought of Mark. In reaching out to him, I learned he had moved to Kansas, where he currently teaches space science and is the director of the Peterson Planetarium and the Science and Math Education Center at Emporia State University. He is also the outreach lead for the Department of Math Sciences and works with the outreach director to bring his enthusiasm and passion for astronomy and space science to Emporia State University students and faculty, as well as to the surrounding community. I also learned more recently that Mark has presented at CAA events in the past and is well known by quite a few of our members. Perhaps some of you in our audience tonight also know Mark or have heard him speak before. In a way, it is fortuitous that tonight's program is a virtual-only event. That has enabled Mark to present from his home in Kansas, and we are very grateful that he has graciously fit us into his very busy schedule. In summary, Mark is an avid photographer and astrophotographer who takes pleasure in observing and imaging the night sky through his telescopes and cameras. He is passionate about conducting educational public outreach and bringing the concepts of astronomy and space science down to the human level of understanding. For Mark, the night sky's darkness and beauty bring light to his day. So without further ado, I'll hand things over to Mark.
Thank you, Chris, for the introduction. And again, thank you to CAA for inviting me out to talk to you a little bit tonight about a little bit of astrophotography and some citizen science. And I did a couple of programs back during COVID for a couple of entities on cell phone astrophotography, and I was able to coordinate with Dr. Sten Oldenwald from NASA. So we did a couple of presentations together for Space Center in Houston and for the International Society of Technology. So it was really good to get an introduction and to learn from him. And he's actually published a book, which I'll share with you the link to on astrophotography with your cell phone. And he's done a lot of research on it. But we all have these devices. We are quite in tune with our devices, our phones, and it's become a lot of convenience and ease. And today maybe the best camera is the one you already have with you. I don't carry my DSLR everywhere I go, but I always have my cell phone camera, and I can certainly say that if there's a chance for an aurora, I'm always using my cell phone, because cell phones have become so much more sensitive, and I can get a quick shot with my cell phone and then grab my DSLRs and go out to where I want to or need to be able to capture the aurora. So with that, and one thing I'll have to do is I kind of give a caveat to this presentation, and let's see if this will go. Advance. So for some reason I can't advance. There we go.
There we go.
All right. So little caveat here. I cannot and will not guarantee the apps presented here are safe for everyone's phone, device, or situation. However, the apps presented here can be downloaded from Google Play, the Apple Store, and have been either used or tested by myself or others that I know in the field of astronomy and astrophotography. Please note that using any third-party apps on smartphone devices can pose various risks, including malware and viruses. Some apps may not go through the same security checks as apps on official app stores, again, making it easier for malware or viruses to infect your device. And download apps may include ads, pop-ups, or request excessive permissions. potentially compromising your personal data. So when downloading apps seen in this presentation, you assume full responsibility for yourself, your device safety and security. So I don't know why I can't advance as easily. So we're talking about smartphone astrophotography. As I said, it's a lot of convenience, it's a lot of ease, and it's becoming easier and easier with that handheld device that you have that you carry around with you on a daily basis. And people are gathering and collecting a lot of really cool images of the night sky, including the Milky Way, aurora, and even shots of the moon. So it's really been quite versatile for people to be able to get out and do this. And as I said, it's becoming easier and easier because the sensors in these cameras are becoming much more sensitive to low light conditions. And then with the addition of apps that I'll talk about in this presentation, the apps actually take over the sensor and they're able to clean up some of the noise that some of these cell phones can have in their images. And again, it's simpler than they think. And when I'm teaching space science, one of the laboratories that I do for my students, they have to go out and they have to shoot star trails. And so this is from Abigail, and she did a really nice job. This was her very first astro photo. Of course, she was down by Wichita when she took this, so she was getting a lot of airplane traffic, and there's a lot of satellites in there. But of course, she'd actually mastered that on her first try, and this was about a 30-minute exposure actually that she captured. So, and again, simply with her cell phone and a particular what is called the Nightcap phone app for iPhones. So when we talk about the sensors, I am a DSLR camera guy. I will admit that. I don't often go out with my cell phone and shoot night sky pictures. I do a quick shot just to see if there's an aurora or any activity like that around. But I mean, we're talking about light gathering capability, and it's very limited. And lots of times, your cell phones and these low light imaging sessions, you come up with a very blotted or mottled or noisy image. So the idea, the last 10 to 15 years have been just revolutionized by cell phone companies. And you can see there in the middle center, roughly, that's the size of a DSLR imaging chip. And so if you look at the gray box there, that's what you have in your cell phone, about 1/3 of an inch. And so the small size of these smartphones limits their sensor size dramatically compared to what you can get with a DSLR for a given exposure time. And so your cell phones can only collect about roughly maybe 1/20th of what a DSLR camera can collect. So it's all about light gathering ability. And with today, if you're talking about images that are caught with a cell phone or a DSLR in daylight, it's hard to tell. If you take two side-by-side images of the same object with a cell phone or with a DSLR, it's hard to tell which device captured what. Low light conditions, it's becoming better and better, but it all depends on what you're viewing that night sky image on to see if you can see any artifacts or noise or things like that. So when you're imaging with your cell phone, your smartphone, this mottled appearance, and I'll kind of show an image of one where you have this noise. It's the thermal and the heat noise and the electronic noise, because your phone is working so hard to try to gather light from that very, very small sensor. So it drums up heat and you get this electronic noise, and that interferes. But with the use of apps and again, with technology improving these sensors, things have really come a long way in the past 10 to 15 years. So this is what people are actually doing today with their cell phones. We have an upcoming solar eclipse in April, and just with a cell phone, you can capture a wide image of the sun, that black dot in the sky, and still your phone will kind of be on autofocus and auto lighting, and it will capture very nicely the landscape around in good lighting, and again capture that solar eclipse. Or just simply going out in the evening sky, pointing your camera to the sky, you can capture a very nice image of the crescent moon and maybe Venus in that image. So some other examples here, people just, the moon is just a perfect target, and we can see the moon in the daytime as well as the nighttime. And sometimes you can frame that image of the first quarter moon or a gibbous moon with the clouds, and you get a very nice blue sky. And again, these sensors are becoming much more versatile so that people can actually zoom in and capture an image of the moon, and you can see very well the light and dark areas, the Maria on the surface of the moon. And so this photographer here captured it with an iPhone 15 Pro, and just with the standard camera setting on her camera, her native camera. Now, telephotos are great, and if you've all had your device and you've probably held it up and you've probably did the swipe where you've zoomed in on something and you're trying to capture something at a far distance, and you know how hard it is even to hold that steady in your hand to get an image that's not blurred because things are moving around so much. And now companies have come out with these telephoto devices that you can actually attach to your cell phone and get really close. Well, the bad thing is if you can't hold your phone steady with your hand and you're doing the swipe to zoom in on a subject, if you add a telephoto lens on it, it's going to become harder and harder to be able to do that. And this is why it's important that you use a tripod. Now, I will caution that I'm a bit not too keen on these telephoto lenses that clip or kind of screw down onto your cell phone, because if you're trying to clamp down something or screw it on to your lens, you risk actually cracking either the lens or the screen from behind. So you need to be careful when you're attaching these types of telephoto lenses. And because you've got extra weight on there, they tend to slip a little bit more if they're not secured. So one of the best ways is to take one of these cell phone holders that specifically can hold the phone, and then have it on a tripod to make it much easier and steadier without getting that blurred image. Quite simply, you can go out and you can buy a tripod from your favorite online store. Anywhere from $15 to $25 will get you a tripod. I actually have a tripod like that on the left, and a cell phone holder there in the middle. I actually have all three. And so they are quite versatile. They fit on a tripod. The one on the right there is specifically for holding your cell phone. It can be adjusted in two axes, and it's made for you to be able to, if you have a telescope, to connect to the eyepiece of the telescope, and then you can fine tune where your camera lens is to be able to look into the eyepiece of that telescope. And especially if a telescope that guides, then you can actually capture some very nice stunning images through your telescope. But the cell phone holder there in the middle, that can be positioned either in portrait or landscape mode if you're trying to take star trail images of the night sky, or just a wide field image of the night sky. So here in this image, you have your what is called the native phone display, your smartphone display with your native camera app. So if you have your cell phone available and you just open up your phone, this is generally what you see. You see your button, which would trigger your photograph, and you might have a portrait mode, a video mode, and there might be a button that says more. You have the ability with the 0.6 to widen out the view or to zoom in 3 times. And then you also might have a little crescent moon there, which is a night mode view. But when you're in your native camera cell phone or smartphone, you have no control over your exposure time, your ISO, which is the sensitivity standard of your camera. ISO, if you remember from the film days, ISO is basically an international organization for standardization of sensitivity. So this is your camera's sensitivity of light when we talk about ISO. So much like film, the higher the number indicates a higher sensitivity and a greater ability for your camera or the film to capture light. And again, when you're using your native camera, you have no control over the focus. Everything is on is in the control of the phone. It's on autofocus. But if you tap that more button on your phone, if you're not familiar with the phone at all, a lot of people just are not aware that their phone has so many more capabilities than they are fully aware of. So by tapping that more button, you can come across other advanced features on your phone. So such of this is an example. The other was my native phone that I took a screenshot of. And, when I hit that more button there, you can see the various apps that are already comes with your native phone, such as the night mode, panorama. You can get video, slow motion, things like that, pro video. But I have actually 2 additional apps, which is called Expert RAW and Pro, that I've downloaded onto my phone, and they actually pop up in that more display. But I can't speak specifically to one phone to another because they are all different. They all have different features and different features that come with your native camera. And again, sometimes you have to download apps to be able to take over control of your native phone camera and to give you more control over the sensor and the focus, as well as the exposure time. So again, some phones offer a night mode or a pro mode, and these are modes that are built in that allows the user to adjust the exposure time, the ISO setting, the sensitivity, as well as the focus. So this is the native camera view on the left, and then if you look on the right, if you hit the Pro button, if your phone has it, you can see now you can control the sensitivity, ISO 800, or you can move that up to maybe 3200. Your speed, you can take exposures anywhere from a few seconds on up to 30 seconds, and then you can choose to manually focus up on the object. Sometimes you can just simply tap the middle of your screen and it will go in, it will focus on that, and then you can lock that in right there on your camera. Again, this Pro mode may not be available on some of the native cameras. And again, you may need to download a camera app from your favorite app store to be able to do this. So the night mode on your camera works very well for these cityscapes. A friend of mine took this image of me. I was looking over LA a couple of years ago. There's my DSLR catching the cityscape. But my friend there took an image of me with my cell phone on night mode. This was a ISO 1000 and only a 2-second exposure. So captured a really nice image of the city of Los Angeles. But again, the user really had no control over the night mode. The camera was all in autofocus and was looking at the sensitivity and the light gathering ability, and decided what exposure it was going to capture in this mode. So in the Pro mode, I have right now I have a Samsung Galaxy 22. So that is my Pro mode on the left. But I also downloaded what is called Expert RAW Camera, which works really, really well. And again, much like the Pro mode on my camera, I have the ability to adjust my ISO, my shutter speed, my focus, things like that. And what's really cool about this particular app is that it shoots in RAW format. And RAW is basically files or your images that contain uncompressed and unprocessed image data. It's taking everything and your phone is not changing it. So when you take those images in RAW format, it allows the photographer to be able to take those images, and you can put those into Photoshop or Lightroom. And then you can you have a lot of versatility to be able to manipulate and edit those images or even stack them as well. So that's what's really cool about having this RAW feature on this particular camera app. It just gives you a little bit more versatility and more control over your camera's sensor, your native camera. But another neat thing when using Expert RAW with this particular camera app, it has a constellation mode. So there is the regular view on the left, but when you tap on the constellation mode there in the upper right, it actually goes into augmented reality, and it brings up your sky from your location. So if you have your position on, and you can hold that up to the night sky. It actually shows what constellation or what stars you're looking at, what planets. And again, if you put that onto your camera onto a tripod, you can focus it, and then you can start shooting away. And it also has a pull down for the number of minutes that you want to take for that astrophoto, anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6 minutes. And then you can adjust your ISO and your sensitivities, and however long you want your shutter speeds to be. So it's really become quite versatile and very convenient, and again, a lot easier for people to capture images of the night sky. Down at the bottom, you see that focus of 0.8. I don't know why it is. I don't have an answer for it, but 0.8, when you have this particular camera app, that just basically gives a very well defined focus for a full wide field view. So you're not really, I think if you bump that up to like 1, 2, or up to 5, it's basically focusing on the center of the object and basically making that the focus of attention in your image. Because I've noticed that sometimes the outer edges become blurrier, they're more blurred, they're not crisp and clear, but this 0.8 or 0.6 focus does a very nice job for capturing landscape, foreground objects, especially when you're doing star trails. So that's why when I talk to my students, they've actually had a lot of success using the Expert RAW on their Android phones. So, and then for your iPhones, iOS cameras, they also have several options for capturing images of the night sky. One is a nightcap mode. Again, some of my students, they have their iPhones and they've used this particular app, and it has an ISO boost and has a light trails mode. So you can do light trails, which are great for cars streaking by if you want to capture a cityscape with cars streaking by. It also has a star trails mode, meteor mode. So it has all these different modes that you can actually do a lot of neat things in capturing the night sky. I don't have an iPhone, but a lot of the students had a lot of success, a lot of control over their camera, their focus, their exposure, and being able to capture various images in the night sky. So one of the things that what I have found, and which is really handy to have, is an intervalometer. And so basically you can download this app, and you can add this to your phone. And when you open up your intervalometer, it will open up also the raw camera app on an Android. And so what's really versatile about this is that you can tell this intervalometer how many images you're going to want to take, and the interval between them, whether it's a second or 5 seconds or whatever. So you can kind of get stop motion when you take multiple image of the night sky, so you can get that motion, or you can take them 1 second after another. And you can also get apps to stack those images. But basically what an intervalometer is, it keeps you from actually touching your camera to start and stop the exposure. So you can see in this particular intervalometer app, there's a timer there in the left there. It says 3 seconds. So basically, when you have your whole scene set up, you know where you want to shoot and what object you want to capture, whether it's star trails, and you have a number of images plugged into there. Basically, you set your timer for 3 seconds or 5 seconds. You hit the start button. You have it on a tripod. Well, why is that 3 seconds or 5 seconds important? Because it's dampening out. It's allowing your camera, once you touch it, to dampen out, so it's not vibrating anymore, shaking. And so by the time that exposure starts, you get these nice, crisp, clean star trails. And then same thing, you can actually stop it, or have a session where it will stop automatically after so many images, and you don't have to worry about touching your camera. So it just allows the user more versatility to not touch their camera, and again, to capture some really nice time-lapse photography with the star trails. Okay. So when you're doing your smartphone astrophotography, one of the things, it's optional. You don't have to get out of the city, but light pollution does really play a key in this. Again, you want to use a remote trigger when you're using on a tripod to be able to start and stop, much like I have here. So there's that camera holder on top of my tripod. And again, it holds it very nicely, very sturdy. And then you can start capturing images of the nighttime sky. Again, using an intervalometer for your star trails to be able to capture this. Again, I wish I could talk to you about every cell phone camera and what's going to work best, but every camera is different as far as their sensitivity, and whether you have an app to overcome the noise ratio and what's happening with your sensor. What you want to do is you get out of the city, you get on a tripod, you get your intervalometer set up, the scene that you want to capture, and then you manually focus on a bright star. And once you can see that on your screen, you're almost ready to get ready to go. The thing is, you do not want to zoom in, because basically when you zoom in with your camera, you're basically just increasing the pixel size. You want to leave, because your sensor is so small, that chip is so small, that if you're just zooming in with the swipe, you're just enlarging the pixels. So it's not really going to help you. You can actually manipulate that after the final picture is done. You can do that in Photoshop or Lightroom, but do not zoom in when you're taking these night sky photos. You're going to have a much more pleasing view and result as you do so. You don't need your flash. You can turn off all of your notifications. And again, you want to make sure that your battery on your phone is charged. When I tell my students, it's hard for students to be able to not want to touch their phones. Their phones chime when they're out there. They want to answer their text or whatever. So, I tell them, I said, you don't need your notifications. This is a lab. And if you can't deal without your phone for 30 minutes, 40 minutes or whatever, well, then you might as well go home and not get a grade on this lab. Sorry, but that's just kind of the way it is. But then you want to make sure that you've got the right app for your phone. Again, all phones are different, and I've put some apps that are very popular for the iPhones and Androids. And again, these are apps that my students have used in class. I've used the FE5, the Open Camera, the Expert RAW for my Android. They work very well. And I've used the Intervalometer app. Now, one note of caution is that some apps only work on higher end cell phones. And some of these apps, if you want to open or unlock various features, there may be a fee for download. And I think most of these apps, if they're not free already, they're anywhere from $1.99 to $3.99 on your app store. And so it's not too bad, but they do really give you a lot more versatility and control when you're shooting with your native camera or your camera in it, so it gives you more control over the sensor. So there are some images that I can show what people have captured in the past with their cell phones, and this is from Dr. Stan Oldenwald. And so he was shooting the constellation of Orion with his S9 phone. And you can see he had a little bit of versatility as to how he was able to control the ISO and the exposure time with his camera on a tripod. And you can see his stars are very much mostly spherical in that left image there. And then he took, just for test, one of those telephotos that clipped onto his phone. And he had it on a tripod and shot the Pleiades with just a few seconds. Again, it was not guided, so the stars started to trail after a few seconds. But, a lot of people would be very impressed just to capture the Pleiades in that view. And again, we're not looking at or looking for the best images. And people are really quite pleased with capturing just the constellations in the sky, knowing that they can do it with the phone in their hand. So it's really given people a lot of versatility and a lot of control, and to be able to capture images with ease. And what's the give and take? Are you going to go out and buy a DSLR, or you've already got $1,000 phone in your hand? So a good DSLR is going to cost you a grand or several grand to be able to go out and purchase. Mary Hightower, I've communicated with her quite frequently on social media, And so I had her go out with her iPhone. And so this was the image of Orion that she captured with her native phone camera. And you can see that in her metadata, that phone, her native camera, actually automatically set it to an ISO of 8,000 and 1.1 seconds at f1.8. And you can see how grainy and mottled the image is on the left. That's your thermal or heat noise, your electronic noise that's coming through just in 1.1 seconds. And so it doesn't give you a really fine-tuned, clean image. But when she was using the nightcap in stars mode on her iPhone, it reduced the ISO, the sensitivity, and then put a 10-second exposure on it. And you can see that it really cleaned up the image, and you can actually see that Betelgeuse is an orange-red color in that image there. So this is just the versatility that these various phone apps can do that you can download and look at. This was an image that I took earlier, back last fall. And so this was the Expert RAW camera. This was a handheld. I had this in constellation mode. And there's the Big Dipper there, Ursa Major, next to the schoolhouse. And the landscape is illuminated because I had a nearly full moon that night illuminating the landscape. And so I basically was able to tell my phone on that app that I wanted a 2000 ISO at f1.8 and a half-second handheld. So that's why that image came out like that. It's illuminated by a nearly full moon there in the eastern sky. And then the reason I was out there is because I knew that Starlink had launched some satellites the night before, and they were going to make a brief appearance in the western sky. So I turned my camera to the west, and sure enough, Starlink showed up. Same settings, and that's about a half-second exposure right there with Starlink and the illuminated landscape. So that's what I was capturing with my Galaxy S22 here in Kansas back last fall. And again, Mary Hightower, I had her do some other experiments. At the time, she's upgraded her phone since then, but see, these are some of the images with her iPhone 11, and she was using the nightcap again. It also had ISS mode, and so she has these very nice star trails. She got some airplanes, and she actually captured a meteor here in this image. Now, the thing is that I found with the cell phones, I'm sure that you have to do some manipulation, but and maybe it's just either where the image is taken, whether it's in town or they're not outside the city lights. But so far, I've not seen a lot of cell phones capturing a lot of color with star trails that you can get with DSLR cameras. And I don't know if that's just because of the sensitivity, because the sensor is too small, or what the reason is. I really don't have an answer for that. So this is ISS mode, and she was actually quite lucky there on the left. She captured ISS going from the top down, and then a meteor streaking from left to right, and a couple of other airplanes or satellites right below that meteor there. And then this is Orion, again in ISS mode, that she had an airplane pass by. But these are images that she captured with her iPhone 11 using that nightcap app. So if you go out and let's say that you capture several images, let's say you capture 80 or 100 images of the star trails. There's also another app, and my students use this. I've used this before. It's called the Star Trails app. It's in Android. It is free. So you take 80, 100, or 150 images, however you prefer, over 20 or 30 or 40 minutes. And then you can take those images with this app, and you can dump them into this. Well, actually, the app will actually go into your folder or to your gallery, and it will take all these images, and you can select whatever images that you want it to use, and it will automatically stack them together. Now, there are other features that you can open up with this particular app. This is kind of annoying, but if you want to see this premium info and this other information and capabilities of this app, it asks you to watch this advertisement video. It's kind of annoying, but as far as I can tell, it didn't compromise any information. It didn't take any personal information from me or my phone or anything like that. And so, again, I use the raw camera, I use the intervalometer, and I use this Star Trails app. And this was a result that I got as an example when I was shooting for my students in my astrophotography class. So again, this was my phone, Expert RAW, and then you can see my settings there. I captured 80 exposures. They were 15 seconds each, and at ISO 500, this was in fairly light polluted skies, but Polaris is quite visible, so you get those nice star trails as well as some airplane tracks and maybe a few satellites in that image. If you want more versatility, you can also take, this is a freeware program. You just go to this website, startrails.exe, and or that website up above, and you can download this on your desktop, your laptop, dump all your images from your cell phone in there, and it makes a really nice time-lapse sequence. And again, you can choose whatever images you want it to stack. If you didn't use an intervalometer and maybe you've touched your camera, and sometimes when you touch your camera, you get what the stars look like they've got hooks on the end of them. And so basically you can take out those images and discard them, and then you won't have that hook on the end of your stars when you do your star trails. Well, let's jump into some other things, looking at some other objects in the sky rather than star trails. And, we've all done this. We've all gone out, we've looked at the full moon or nearly full moon. We see it rising above the horizon, and it looks really so cool. And I mean, I will tell you, and any astronomer will tell you that, there's no camera out there that will capture really what your eye is so well designed, and it can capture so much detail, so much light. Can't hold light really well, but just the scene of what you're looking at, the landscape, things like that. And so you want to take a picture of it, and you're going to say, oh, I'm going to get this awesome images. And then, well, what appears on your camera? Well, that little tiny dot right there. And so, when people look at this is what they end up on their camera. They got that tiny dot there, and well, they zoom in on it. Well, it's all pixelated because you're basically zooming in and you're looking at the enlarged pixels. So it's not a very pleasing image sometimes. But again, cell phones have come a long way, and now they're allowing you to be able to zoom in and swipe in, and as long as you can hold your phone steady on a tripod, it will really give you a good image of the moon. So there are some images here of a lunar eclipse as well as a full moon with various phones. So, it's becoming so much more easier and versatile to be able to do this with your cell phone. This is just me simply hooking up to my small refractor. This was an older phone that I had way back, and I was using a phone app called ProCam X, which was a free app. I don't know if it's still available, but it did a very nice job. And again, sometimes you might not know what you're going to capture. I got a jet plane going across the image of my moon right there. And again, hooking up to telescopes, this is a favorite. As I showed in the previous image, people are capturing really stunning images of the planets and even deep sky objects there. Beautiful pictures of Jupiter, the moon, and even deep sky objects like the Orion Nebula. Now, the Orion Nebula, that is a fairly bright object to be able to see in a telescope. And if you're guiding, and just a 15-second exposure can capture some detail in the Orion Nebula. And again, the rings of Saturn, this is a favorite for people. And to be able to hook up your smartphone to a telescope and to capture it just with a few seconds, it's phenomenal what people can do today. And it's very impressive what they're able to do. And again, the Galilean satellites of Jupiter. Again, this was just handheld against the eyepiece of an 8-inch telescope. Again, auroras, very popular, and again, sunspots with a telescope. Again, be very careful when you're trying to photograph the sun. Make sure that your telescope is properly filtered. don't point your telescope there and expect to put your phone up there, because you're going to damage your telescope. You're going to damage either your eye or your phone as well. So please be very careful about how you are photographing the sun with your cell phone or any other camera or device. But I also did this with an older camera that I had, older cell phone, and my refractor. It was properly filtered, but I got an image of the sun. So this was the book that I was talking about by Dr. Stan Oldenwald. And so this book is available. It is a PDF book. I think it's like 117 pages. I think it was written in 2017. It might be it's probably a little bit dated as far as technology, but the same concepts and same tips that he uses in that book still apply today. So you can actually go to that website there, and it is a free PDF download. So there's the link there, and I have the link actually at the end of this presentation too. But phenomenal book to be able to look at, and gives you some very good guidance. It actually goes into a lot more of the sensitivity of the various chips in cell phone cameras and how they gather light and things like that. So just a brief recap. You know, smartphone astrophotography and even DSLR photography, it can be hit and miss, but you can really get some smooth, polished images. And if you're going out to a dark site, country road, or whatever, and you want to set up and do stuff, bring a friend. Don't go alone. You never know what's going to happen these days, but take a friend along, experience it, and learn a little bit about the nighttime sky. Take that tripod with you. Use a Bluetooth or an intervalometer to take control your photos. Anymore, you have these Bluetooth devices. You have voice control. You can activate your phone. You can tell your phone to actually automate or start and stop that exposure. Again, get away from the city lights. When the moon is in the sky, try to experiment when the moon is in the sky. You might get some really nice images when you're talking about getting the landscape illuminated. So be creative, enjoy the night sky, and have some fun. And, don't be discouraged on your first attempt. It may take several attempts for you to get that complete, really polished image that you're looking for. So let's kind of move into something that I really like delving into, and I'm actually starting to do this with some entities here at Emporia State University. And, as an astronomer, we are all familiar with light pollution. And so what is it? Well, that's the annoying glow from city lights, from car lights, street lights, business lights, illuminated billboard signs, things like that. And so we have all these things that go on. We have light trespass. It's light that's, shining from our street lights onto our houses. I mean, basically, I think it's illegal. I mean, it should be shining on the right of way. It shouldn't be shining on your house. We have overlighting of these car lots or department stores, and then they create glare. So it creates actual hazards for if you're walking at night, if you're driving. I've done experiments where I can actually stand in the shadow where there's so much glare, and I can pop out on someone and scare the living daylights out of them because there's just so much glare. So, but it's nice. It's when you get out and you get away from the city lights. And so this was an image that I captured last year, just 10 seconds with my cell phone from a dark site. Well, I thought it was pretty dark, but my cell phone actually picked up on the sky glow and some of the farms that were around. So, and you can see the light domes from some far off towns in the distance, but just in 10 seconds with the expert RAW at 2500, 10 seconds, I got a really nice image of the Milky Way, and it would have been a lot nicer had I not had the glow on the horizon. But again, it picked up some airplanes, picked up Jupiter and Saturn, as well as aircraft. So really nice image there. I guess this was a couple of years ago, so that I captured this. And again, this is when I lived in Marion, and this was a view from across the street, and just a faint glow of the Milky Way there. And this was back in 2020, and I'll talk about this image here in a few minutes, but the two bright dots there above the house, that's Jupiter and Saturn before they had the conjunction in December of 2020. So when we talk about light pollution, it is a global issue. It is real. And it's really causing a lot of havoc. And so, 80% of the world, we all live under, light polluted skies. And so it produces that glare. It limits our ability to see the things at night that we need to see. Light trespass, it wastes money, obscures our views of the stars and planets. And, there are studies out there now that show that light pollution or these impacts of blue light, it impacts life, both human and animal. So what's really amazing is that, 1/3 of the population, the world population, has never seen the Milky Way. And, they are saying now by 2050, scientists believe that there won't be a dark site anywhere in the world that doesn't exhibit some type of glow from a city light on the horizon. So it's really sad to think about that the generation that's coming now and future generations will never see the Milky Way, or may not ever see that in their lifetime from a dark site. So the thing is, we can track and monitor this by using our cell phones. And cell phones, again, becoming great tools to be able to track and monitor this problem. We can use technology, these web apps. There's Globe at Night, Loss of the Night, Anecdata, SciStarter. These are all web apps or apps or websites that you can go to on your desktop or download onto your phone. And so by using these apps, you can track light pollution, you can track satellites, and you can upload your images. And so this all goes into databases that people can use for science. And so the sensors, as I said, in your smartphones and your cameras, they are becoming quite versatile, and to where we can all become citizen scientists to be able to help combat light pollution, or bring awareness at least to the problem. So when we talk about using our smartphone, capturing images of the night sky, it does. It provides invaluable data. And, as astronomers, we've seen the light pollution maps that satellites have captured from our area. But if we are capturing and monitoring light pollution from the ground, this provides ground truthing for NASA and their satellite data. So this is the thing, how are the sensors on satellites compared to our cell phones, and how we can actually monitor and upload data as far as light polluted areas. This is one of the things I'm actually in the middle of writing for a NASA grant to get some equipment so I can actually do a light pollution study here in Kansas, and also involve students. So again, when you're doing this, it sparks interest for the night sky and astronomy overall. It's a great activity for students. They can take data, they can collect real-time data themselves, and they can upload it in these apps. And, they don't have to be an Einstein. They don't have to be an astronomer to be able to do this. It's entirely optional. They have a lot of the tools that they need in the cell phone that they use each and every day with the new apps that are coming available. And so we just finished the Globe at Night campaign. They had a campaign. This is when there was no moon in the sky. And basically, it's a campaign where you go out. They have this every month, and they have particular constellations for that particular month. And you go out and you look at the nighttime sky, and you assess the nighttime sky from your location, and then you upload it in the app or from your desktop computer to Globe at Night. And that goes into a database, and I'll show you some images. So this is the website, Globe at Night. And I've highlighted you. It's got the home button or the home tab. You can learn a lot about Globe at Night, what they do. You can learn about magnitudes. You can learn about the constellations and learn how to observe the nighttime sky and to upload this data. So they give you these very nice tutorials on Globe at Night as to how you can actually become a citizen scientist or a night sky ranger, and you can take your data and upload it to this website for all to see. And I've done this many, many times when I lived in Pennsylvania, when I lived in Iowa, and I've actually started to do that more here in Kansas. So when you go into, this is on the desktop. It's a little bit different if you download the phone app, but it still does the same thing. but it brings up a screen like this. This is from my desktop. I captured a couple of screenshots, but it's changed a little bit. But basically, you put in your observing date and the time that you observed, and it says, where did you make your observations? Well, you can actually take your map there and you can zoom in on it, and you can zoom in on your actual location where you took your reading, or you could input your address. Now, the great thing is with Globe of Night, I've checked with these people, they do not collect any information. Even though you might put your home address in there where you made your observation, it does not collect that. It just basically plots a point on a map. It doesn't give any addresses or anything like that. So it's perfectly safe. But so you can map your location, and it gives you step by step. And then if you look over at number 3, how dark was the sky at night? Well, it gives you various maps. So let's say, for example, they wanted you to look at the area of the constellation of Orion. How many stars did you see? How many stars were you able to roughly count? Was this the view that you saw? And this makes it very, very easy and simple for non-scientists, for non-astronomers, for students to be able to go outside and to try to assess the night sky. And so if you move that slider or click on one of those squares, it gives you an idea. The more you click to the right, you're seeing fainter and fainter stars. If you go to the left, you're probably in a more light polluted sky. And then you describe, what was your location? What is the location? Was it rural, suburban? Did you have snow on the ground? Because snow can actually reflect light into the sky, cause more an inconvenience of being able to see the stars or the constellations. Were there houses around? Were there porch lights? Was there light that was being strayed into the location that you were imaging or actually looking into the sky? And then, were there light domes? Things like that. Which direction were you looking? Was there any haze or anything like that? Of course, it's always nice to be able to do this when the sky is mostly clear out. Makes it hard and hard because actually clouds reflect a lot of light too, and it blocks out the sky. There's also an option to use what's called an SQM meter, which is a sky quality light meter. You can do that. So you can take readings not only visually, but also with a light meter, and then you can upload your data. So when I was in Marion, this is one of the, when you bring up, you can go into the maps and data portion of Globe at Night. And so these are all the locations, and you can zoom in to this map, and you can see all the data points that were collected. And this was from 2020 when I did some data collecting in around Marion in my subdivision before they started building all the houses and everything was complete. So I zoomed in and I did my subdivision here. You can see the little dots showing up by Boyson Park. And so I was doing light pollution studies all around my subdivision there. And then when you zoom in, there's all my data points. And so you can go into Globe at Night and you can click on any one of those data points, and it gives you a whole bunch of information. And also you can see the limiting magnitude there on the left side there. And so limiting magnitude there where I was capturing my, doing things visually or with the SQM, my sky quality meter, I was getting a limiting magnitude of 3 or 4. And you might notice there that there's a red dot there that's about a limiting magnitude of 6 or 7. And you're probably going, how in the world did he get that from Marion? And well, I'll tell you that. But if you click on one of these data points, this is the type of data that I was collecting. So it was 2020. It was on November 7th when I captured, did this study. Gives the lat and long of that particular data point. Limiting magnitude was 3. I was looking at the constellation of Pegasus, and I was using an SQM meter. And then I did all the data, the comments of the sky, where I was looking, and the location. So this is what Globe at Night looks at. And it's invaluable information for people to bring up and to be able to click on. And then you can duplicate this, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road. How much has it changed? It's real data. So when you were looking at this, we all know from Iowa there what happened in 2020. And so we had the derecho on August 10th of 2020. And so after we had the derecho, it passed, the skies cleared. I went outside. This is a DSLR camera image, but this was from Marion. So I'm looking south, there's Jupiter and Saturn, and that is the brilliant glow of the Milky Way. This is a 20-second exposure at ISO 1600, and it was gorgeous. Cedar Rapids was blanked out. That glow there, that's Iowa City, 26 miles to the south. So there's a lot of light. Well, so it was August 10th. That night, no lights. It was gorgeous. Limiting magnitude, yes, about a 6. And so then 1 week later, that was the sky after the lights started to come back on. So quite a drastic difference there. And then when I was in Pennsylvania, I started doing light pollution surveys on state parks. So I was going to all the state parks in Pennsylvania, or that was my attempt before I left there. And I was working as a geologist for the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. But because I was the only astronomer, they allowed me to incorporate my astronomy into map making. And so I was actually developing light pollution maps for state parks in Pennsylvania. So those are the majority of those are my data points from 2016, looking at state park areas in and around Pennsylvania. And then the thing is, if you're not familiar with Cherry Springs State Park, that is the dark site east of the Mississippi River in northern Pennsylvania. So a lot of people flock there because they want to see a brilliant view of the Milky Way. Well, being an astronomer, they were having so much overload trying to crowd control and traffic. I wanted to help them out to be able to give people other avenues in which they could go and see the Milky Way. Probably not as brilliant as Cherry Springs, but at least to give them another avenue to be able to travel to and to see the Milky Way. Skip over that. But these are some of the apps that you can download on your phone, Anecdata or SciStarter. You download it onto your phone, you log into the project, you can do night sky light pollution. You can take images of areas around your neighborhood where there is stray light, where there's security lights that are glaring. You can take those pictures, you can upload them to this app. You can actually also monitor satellites that are coming across your sky. You know, we're all concerned about Starlink satellites and how they are impacting our skies. You can actually track that on your phone and upload your data from your location, and then you're done. It all goes into a database that people can look at and use for their own resources. So when we talk about resources here, just to kind of recap, you've got the International Dark Sky location at darksky.org. These are all great organizations to be able to start at, to be able to visit their websites or their apps themselves. And again, download these apps on your phone and start imaging the nighttime sky and start using Globe at Night to try to bring light pollution awareness to people. As I go back to, getting students involved, how great is this? Even our youngsters, our 12, 13, 14-year-olds and high schoolers and middle schools, they all have cell phones these days. They all live near schools, or the majority of them. Have their parents get involved, take them out around the school and do a light pollution study of their school grounds and the housing around there. And then, you have the kids come back, they've got their data, and then they compare their data. They've got real-time data, and they can say, who has the darkest location from their house, or who lives in a more light polluted area, or what lights are, being shown onto your property. So it really brings awareness as to, for students, how much they can see in the night sky and how much of the night sky they are losing. And especially if we can take them out to a really nice dark sky and show them. And again, going out to the Eastern Iowa Observatory, showing them a nice nighttime sky out there, and then comparing that to what Cedar Rapids is. So, I mean, you guys have got a great resource, and it's so well done that you guys are taking this and you're doing so much more outreach and reaching out to students and even families to be able to do more science and to enjoy the nighttime sky. So almost finished here. So these are two videos. If you want to learn more about how to take images with your with your Android phones or your iPhones. These are great resources. And then there's the web app, or I'm sorry, the website for Dr. Stan Oldenwald's book on astrophotography. But if you can get to those YouTube channels for Android and iPhones, he has a lot of great tips on how to start you off on capturing images of the nighttime sky and those star trails. So with that, it took a little bit longer than I expected, but are there any questions that I might be able to answer?
Mark, I want to thank you for an excellent program.
Let me see if
I've
I
got a
can stop
couple-
sharing here. Sure I can.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you.
First question is, as you might recall from our learning center, we have a stellarium exhibit. Am I still connected?
Yes, we're
Yes,
hearing
you're
you.
still there.
Okay, sorry about that. We have a stellarium exhibit. Is there any way for that to be, assuming I'm not misunderstanding you, is there any way for that to be interactive with the Globe at Night software to integrate the two?
I have no knowledge of that. Maybe someone else there. I have no idea. I just know I use Stellarium a lot. My students use it a lot because it's a great way to use the learn the constellations. I'm not sure how that could be used with Globe at Night or not.
Okay. Could you please repost the exhibit, the resource that you showed early in your program that showed the different apps that are available?
Yes. Let's see here.
And don't forget that we will have this recorded, so it's on our, will be on our member link on our website, so you can go back and watch the whole program at your will.
Okay.
So Tom, I don't know how we normally do this. We have a lot of other people that are muted. Do we want to unmute them, or do we want them to put questions in the chat if they have them? How do we want to
I
handle
did
that?
not do a mass mute, so I think anybody can individually unmute themselves.
Okay,
I did notice that, like Bunny said, we have this recorded. Someone had put in the chat if they could watch this. It will be uploaded to YouTube. We'll have a YouTube video with a link. It should be on our YouTube link and our website, cedar-astronomers.org.
I have a question here. You have any more information about that sky quality meter that you were using?
Yeah, so if you just Google sky quality meter, they're about this. It looks like it's a little bit bigger than a deck of cards, and I think they come from Canada. There are other organizations that camera stores and things like that sell them. I think they run around anywhere from $130 to $150. But it's really versatile. It runs off a 9-volt battery, and so it has a sensor on it at the top. And you just basically hold that up, or you can attach it to a tripod, and you push a button and it gives a reading as far as the darkness of your sky. It's actually reading the darkness of your sky from your location. So the higher the number, the darker your sky. And doesn't the Eastern Iowa Observatory have a couple of those on hand? Does anyone know?
I don't think we've ever used those with any of the kids. I don't know if maybe Wendell might have used one outside. And also, I know when nights we've looked at whatever the app is, if we're going to have a public night or member night, I look online that tells what the anticipation is for the amount of viewing you'll have that night. So that's a free thing that is I think that's got a link on our website to go to look at.
Is it Clear Dark Sky? I think it's clear dark sky that you
Yeah,
can
it
bring up.
shows the amount, whether there's gonna be a sky to look at or not, and the
Right.
degree of it. It's, it's like a graph,
Okay.
but I
I
don't
know
think
clear
we have
dark
one of
sky
those.
is one that you can bring up on the web.
Yeah.
And that shows the transparency of the sky, how dark it is.
That's the word I was looking for, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
have an app on my phone
really-
called Astrospheric that does that. It gives a pretty good indication of the
Yeah,
brightness
right.
of the sky and transparency and things like that.
Yeah, so the kids don't need, if you're trying to get students to do it, we don't really need they don't need to buy a little gizmo for $100 or $50. You can,
Well, I
Yeah,
wasn't thinking about it
another
for,
app,
I
another
was
app
thinking
that you
about it
can
for
download
myself,
is,
not for the club.
yeah,
yeah, another app that you can download is called Clear Outside, and that does a really good job as far as also shows International Space Station times passes
Yep.
for your location as well. It's called
Yep.
Clear Outside.
yeah.
Mark, I had a quick thought for you regarding that 0.8 that you referred to earlier in your program.
Yes.
I think what it might be is kind of analogous to the difference in cameras between an FX sensor, which is full frame, and a DX sensor, which is only about 2/3 of the frame,
Okay.
which effectively gives you a built-in zoom camera. So if
Okay.
if I take my 50mm lens and put it onto a DX camera, effectively it's not a 50 anymore, it's a 70. So if I put it onto my 80-400 zoom, for all practical purposes, on a DX camera, an 80-400 is the equivalent to a 120-600.
Okay.
And so my guess is that maybe that 0.8 is kind of the same type of thing. It is giving you the ability to go from an FX to a DX and get a little bit, it's concentrating more on the interior 80% of the sensors and effectively giving you a low grade zoom for your trouble.
Okay.
That's my guess as to what it could be.
And that's sounds, reasonable. I mean, like I said, I have no idea. But I can see that being, a reasonable response.
Now, again, thank you for an excellent program.
Well, thank you.
Mark, this is Chris again. Again, thank you on behalf of everyone. But a couple times you mentioned holding the cell phone up to a telescope eyepiece.
Yes.
Are there ways to sort of attach the cell phone to the eyepiece so that you don't have to handhold it?
Yeah, if I'll go back, but it was towards the beginning there. Let me go back. It was there are various versions of this. Apologize here. Towards the beginning. Let's see. It's better to go off like this. So this is a device that the one on the right will actually hold your cell phone, and then you can clamp that onto the eyepiece, a telescope eyepiece, and then you can position in 2 axes your camera lens on your cell phone to position it directly over the eyepiece so that it goes
Okay.
straight through. But these can range, I think these range for anywhere from $20 to $50. There are different versions out there.
I can't quite make out the brand name on that. Do you know?
This was, I'd have to go upstairs and try to find mine. I don't know the brand name on that. I can't read it on here on my screen.
Yeah,
I
looks
think
like
I think it says Gorky.
Yeah, it's Gorky.
Gorky.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that looks right.
Yeah, that's right. It's Gorky.
I believe, Chris, we have one of these at the observatory.
Oh, super.
I believe Noah brought it in, probably a year ago.
That's right. I think she did.
Yeah, when I do outreach events, I bring it out and I attach it to the eyepiece, then people can attach their cell phone cameras. Lots of times, these attachments, I have to have people take off their cases because the cases are so thick that to protect the cell phone, that it's just too thick to get into the holder.
Cool. Anybody else have any questions?
Mark, did you say that that intervalometer was, is that a separate app or is that included on like the Nightcap or the Expert Raw?
No, it is a separate app.
Is that free as well?
Yes.
Okay.
But only for Android or?
Yeah, the iPhone people cannot get it to download, so I don't know what the deal was with the iPhones.
That was the question I had too.
I know some students had some trouble downloading it for the iPhone or getting it to work. But Android users, they found a lot of success with it.
Well, Mark,